Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, our mission is figuring out just how a fantasy novel explodes into a massive cultural moment. We're taking a deep dive into Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros.
Yeah, this is really interesting stuff for anyone watching publishing trends. We're not just giving you a plot summary. We're trying to unpack let's say, the formula. What made this book the thing everyone's talking about online? You need to understand the mechanics behind it.
Absolutely. And when you first look at it, I mean, the appeal, it hits you right away, doesn't it? This blend of genres. It's got that epic high fantasy feel, dragons, a war college, big battles, but then it smashes that together with this really intense, character-focused new adult romance.
Yeah,
Our sources basically flag that combo as the main hook.
definitely. That's why it became one of the most talked about fantasy books of, 2025? It promises the big spectacle and that deep emotional connection.
Okay, so let's start with the world itself, the setting,
Yeah.
because that seems foundational.
Right. Bajith War College. It's defined by, one thing really, survival. It's brutal. This isn't your typical school, it's a deadly academy. Simple as that. Young warriors train there, and they either manage to bond with a dragon.
Or they die trying.
Exactly. Or they die trying. The stakes are immediate.
And the sources really hammer home that this setting isn't just like wallpaper. It's an active threat, right?
Oh, totally. The world building is just huge, colossal scale. We're talking dragons the size of mountains, flying creatures that size.
Okay, wow. But how does the author make that feel, tangible? How do you make mountain-sized terror real for a reader?
Well, it comes down to the specifics, the vivid details that sort of ground all that high fantasy. It's not just saying it's dangerous. It's describing things like the logistics. Think about the massive dragon stables needed for these beasts lit by torchlight, or these treacherous cliffside arenas where cadets face deadly challenges.
Okay, so you see the practicalities, the danger zones.
Yeah, that contrast, human fragility right up against this immense elemental power. It creates this constant underlying tension. Even the architecture feels deadly.
That kind of environment. I mean, a constant threat, the need to partner up just to survive. That must really ramp up the internal drama for the characters. The sources talk about that?
Oh, absolutely. It forces people together. You have to rely on others, but under the absolute worst conditions. The author does a brilliant job blending that external spectacle, the dragons, the fights, with really deep personal stakes.
So it's not just about fighting monsters.
No, it's about impossible choices. Like, do you sacrifice another student to save yourself? Who do you trust when your allies could also be your competition? Or worse, the reader isn't just following a plot, they're watching these intense moral dilemmas play out. You care about the dragon, sure, but you're just as invested in the human cost.
Okay, let's shift to the characters then. The protagonist, Violet Soaringale. Strong, smart. Okay, lots of fantasy heroes are. What makes her stick? What did the sources say was key?
I think it's her vulnerability. That's the core of it. She's layered because she fundamentally doesn't fit in this world. She arrives at the academy physically smaller, more fragile than the others. She's dealing with all these internal conflicts, self-doubt, fear, huge family expectations, plus this debilitating physical issue.
So she's an underdog from page one.
Exactly. The system is practically designed to break her. It pushes her way beyond that generic chosen one idea. She's not just destined for greatness. She's literally fighting tooth and nail to survive the first week, the first day even.
That makes sense. You relate to someone fighting against the odds, especially an inherent disadvantage. And that internal complexity, that must feed right into the dynamic with the love interest, Sadden Rierson. He sounds intense, mysterious, complicated.
The analysis definitely points to their chemistry. It's described as electric. And it works because you've got two really popular tropes firing on all cylinders in this high-stakes place. Enemies to lovers and forced proximity.
The classic combo.
Right. And because the stakes are literally life and death, every single interaction between them feels supercharged. They have to rely on each other, even though they're supposed to be on opposite sides of this deep conflict. So every quiet conversation, it's all amplified. Failure isn't just awkward. Failure could mean death for them or their dragons.
So the tension isn't just like petty arguments or misunderstandings. It's baked into their reality.
Precisely. It's a direct result of the world they live in. And importantly, the sources mention the author extends this kind of depth beyond just Violet and Accident.
Well, the side characters, too.
Yeah. Mentors, rivals, other students, they get enough backstory, enough personality that they feel real, they matter. So when things get brutal in training and people are at risk, you genuinely care about what happens to the whole group, not just the main couple.
Okay, so we've got the brutal world, the high stakes, these electric characters. What about the deeper stuff, the themes?
Yeah.
What gives the book its emotional weight beyond just the, page-turning action?
Well, connecting it all, the resonance seems to come from exploring really universal themes, but in this incredibly extreme setting. It gets into courage, loyalty, resilience, the tricky nature of friendship when everyone's also your competitor.
Standard fantasy themes, maybe.
To a point, but it goes deeper into the burden of sacrifice. And maybe most importantly, discovering what you're truly capable of when everyone, including maybe yourself, tells you you're not cut out for it. It's really about finding yourself under extreme pressure, self-discovery under duress.
And that intense emotional core probably explains the huge fan reaction, right? The sources kept calling it an emotional roller coaster. What does that actually mean for the reader experience? Is it just sad, then happy?
It means the pacing and the plot just keep you wired, on high alert through almost every chapter. It demands a lot from you emotionally. People said it made them laugh, made them furious at the villains, and genuinely grieve when characters were lost.
Wow. Good.
And that intensity, that's what makes it sticky. Readers aren't just saying, yeah, good book. They're processing these complex feelings, moral questions, grief, moments of triumph, and that makes them need to talk about it right away. That processing, that discussion, that's the glue.
Okay, that explains the internal impact.
Yeah.
But the external explosion, seeing it everywhere, TikTok, Instagram, forums, how did it leap from just being a successful book to this cultural phenomenon generating nonstop content?
Right. This is what the sources are calling the perfect storm. It manages to hit three huge, often separate audiences all at once.
Which are?
You've got your classic high fantasy readers, you've got the adventure and military fantasy fans, and then you've got the massive new adult romance crowd. It delivers something compelling for all of them simultaneously, and it's all wrapped up in this super fast-paced, gripping story. It's just designed to be devoured and shared.
So it's the mix. So dragons pull in the fantasy folks, the academy and battles get the adventure readers, and that intense enemies-to-lovers plot fuels the romance community, creates a kind of critical mass for discussion.
Exactly right. And that discussion tips over into obsession almost immediately. People aren't just rating it 5 stars online. They're creating intricate fan art, they're obsessing over which dragon bonds with whom, they're sharing incredibly detailed theories about the world's politics, debating every character choice.
It becomes more than just a book.
Yeah, the sources nail it. Not just a book, it's a phenomenon. Because it doesn't stop at entertaining you. It actively drives community building and creative responses.
Okay, now, to give our listeners the full picture, we should touch on any counterpoints. With this level of hype, there are usually some critiques, right? Even minor ones noted in the sources.
Sure, yeah. And while the overall excitement definitely dominates, there were a few valid points raised. Some readers felt that the really intense pacing, the thing that makes it so bingeable, sometimes made certain plot points feel a bit rushed.
Like multiple storylines happening almost too fast.
Kind of, yeah. Multiple things vying for attention. The speed that drives the obsession could feel a little overwhelming for some.
Okay, that makes sense. Anything else?
Tied to that, maybe, was the idea that because the pace is so relentless, some of the secondary characters, while memorable initially, could maybe have used a bit more breathing room, a little more development outside of just serving the main plot's forward momentum.
So a potential trade-off for the relentless action and the core romance focus.
Precisely. It's not necessarily a flaw, more like an inherent consequence of prioritizing that specific kind of reading experience, the nonstop action, the central chemistry.
That's a good nuance to add.
Yeah.
But overall, how do these minor points stack up against the world building, the emotional core, the characters?
In the grand scheme of things, they're pretty minor. The consensus in the sources is clear. The emotional depth, the really ambitious world, and especially the success of Violet's journey, from perceived weakness to undeniable strength that pulls readers through any bumps. The sheer excitement factor tends to override those smaller critiques.
What's our final takeaway for someone listening, maybe wondering if they should jump in?
Well, the analysis confirms it's pretty much a must-read if you're into high-stakes fantasy, especially the military academy kind, or if you love a really dominant enemies-to-lovers story. Dragon lovers, absolutely. And if you're new to Rebecca Yarros, this is definitely the place to start to get why she's so popular.
Excellent. So recapping quickly, Fourth Wing's huge success seems to boil down to that perfect mix: high-stakes military fantasy, intense personal romance, truly awesome giant dragons, and characters you get deeply invested in, a story that just grabs you and doesn't let go.
Right. And connecting this back to the bigger picture, maybe the key insight from the sources is how it combines those huge external stakes, the deadly school, the war, with really intense internal character struggles. Violet's physical challenges, her doubts, her fears.
Resilience earned, not just given.
Exactly. You see her earn it. You see fragility being forged into steel page by page.
So maybe a final thought for you listening. What does this massive success suggest about what modern fantasy readers are really craving? It seems like it's not just the spectacle, not just the world-ending threats anymore. Maybe it's also seeing that deeply personal journey, overcoming self-doubt against impossible odds. Something to think about if you're considering joining the Fourth Wing obsession.